carnal embrace?
Carnal embrace is the act of throwing one's arms around a side of beef.
Is that all?
No, a shoulder of mutton, a haunch of venison, well hugged, an embrace of grouse, caro, carnis, feminine, flesh.
Is it a sin?
Not exactly, my lady, but when carnal embrace is sinful, it is a sin of the flesh. QED. We had caro in our Gallic wars. The Britons live on milk and meat. Lacte et carne vivant. I am sorry the seed fell on stony ground.
That was the sin of omen, wasn't it, Septimus?
Yes, he was giving his brother's wife a Latin lesson, and she was hardly the wiser after it than before. I thought you were finding a proof for Fermat's last theorem.
It is very difficult. You will have to show me how to do it.
If I knew how, there would be no need to ask you. Fermat's last theorem has kept people busy for 150 years, and I had hoped it would keep you busy long enough for me to read Mr. Chater's poem in praise of love with only the distraction of its own absurdities.
Are Mr. Chater's written a poem?
He believes he has written a poem, yes. I can see there's more carnality in your algebra than in Mr. Chater's couch of arrows.
It was not in my algebra. I heard Jellyby telling the cook that Mrs. Chater was discovered in carnal embrace in the gazebo.
With whom did Jellyby happen to say?
What do you mean, with whom?
With what? Exactly so. The idea is absurd. Oh, where did the story come from?
Mr. Noakes.
Mr. Noakes?
Mr. Noakes, Papa's landscape gardener. He was taking bearings in the garden when he saw through his spyglass Mrs. Chater in the gazebo in carnal embrace.
Do you mean to tell me Mr. Noakes told the butler?
No. Mr. Noakes told Mr. Chater. Jellyby was told by the groom who overheard Mr. Noakes telling Mr. Chater in the stable yard.
Mr. Chater being engaged in closing the stable door.
What do you mean, Septimus?
So thus far, the only people who know about this are Mr. Noakes, the landscape gardener, the groom, the butler, the cook, and Mrs. Chater's husband, the poet.
And Arthur, who was cleaning the silver, and the boot boy, and now you.
Of course. What else did he have to say?
Mr. Noakes?
No, Jellyby. You heard Jellyby telling the cook.
Oh, cook hushed him almost as soon as he started. Jellyby did not see that I was being allowed to finish yesterday's upstairs rabbit pie before I came to my lesson. I believe you've not been candid with me, Septimus. A gazebo is not, after all, a meat larder.
I never said my definition was complete.
Is carnal embrace kissing?
Yes.
And throwing one's arms around Mrs. Chater?
Yes. Now, Fermat's...
I hope you are ashamed.
I, my lady?
If you do not teach me the true meaning of things, who will?
Ah, yes, I am ashamed. Carnal embrace is sexual congress, which is the insertion of the male genital organ into the female genital organ for purposes of procreation and pleasure. Fermat's last theorem, by contrast, asserts that when x, y, and z are whole numbers, each raised to the power of n, the sum of the first two may never equal the third when n is greater than 2.
Ow!
Nevertheless, that is the theorem.
It is disgusting and incomprehensible. And when I am grown to practice it myself, I shall not do so without thinking of you.
Thank you very much, my lady. Was Mrs. Chater down this morning?
No. Tell me more about sexual congress.
There is nothing more to be said about sexual congress.
Is it the same as love?
No, it is much nicer than that. I am teaching, Jellyby.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Hodge. Mr. Chater said it was urgent you received his letter.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chater asked me to bring him your answer.
My answer? My answer is that, as is my custom and my duty to his lordship, I am engaged until 11:45 in the education of his daughter. When I am done, and if he is still there, I would be happy to meet with Mr. Chater in the gunroom.
I will tell him so. Thank you, sir.
What is for dinner, Jellyby?
Boiled ham and cabbages, milady. And a rice pudding.
Oh, goody.
So much for Mr. Noakes. He puts himself forward as a gentleman, a philosopher of the picturesque, a visionary who can move mountains and cause lakes. But in the scheme of the garden, he is as the serpent.
When you stir your rice pudding, Septimus, the spoonful of jam spreads itself round, making red trails like a picture of a meteor in my astronomical atlas. But when you stir backward, the jam does not notice and does not come together again. The pudding continues to turn pink just as before. Do you think this is odd?
No.
Well, I do. You cannot stir things apart.
No more you can. Time must needs run backwards. And since it will not, we must stir our way onward, mixing as we go. Disorder, out of disorder, into disorder, until pink is complete, unchanging and unchangeable, and we are done with it forever. This is called free will or self-determination. Sit.
Septimus, do you think God is a Newtonian?
An Etonian, most certainly. We must have your brother make it his next enquiry.
No, Septimus, a Newtonian. Septimus, am I the first to have thought of this?
No.
I've not said yet.
If everything from the farthest planet to the smallest atom of our brain were to work according to Newton's laws, what becomes of free will?
No.
God's will.
No.
Sin.
No.
Very well.
If you could stop every atom in its position and direction, and your mind could comprehend all the actions thus suspended, and if you were really, really good at algebra, you could write a formula for all the future. And although no one can be so clever as to do it, a formula must exist just as if one could.
Yes. Yes, I think you are the first person to have thought of this. In the margin of his copy of Arithmetica, Fermat wrote that he had found a wonderful proof for his theorem, but the margin being too small for his purpose, he did not have room to write it down. The note was found after his death, and from that day to this...
I see, the answer's perfectly obvious.
This time you may have overreached yourself. Mr. Chater, perhaps my message miscarried. I will be at liberty at 11:45, if that is convenient.
It is not convenient, sir. My business will not wait.
Then I assume you have Lord Croom's opinion that your business is more important than his daughter's lesson.
I do not, but if you like, I will call upon his lordship to settle the point.
My lady, take Fermat into the music room. There will be an extra spoonful of jam if you find his proof.
There is no proof, Septimus. The thing that is perfectly obvious is that the note in the margin is a joke to make you all mad.
Now, sir, what is this business that cannot wait?
I think you know it, sir. You have insulted my wife.
Insulted her? That would deny my nature, my conduct, and the admiration in which I hold Mrs. Chater.
I have heard of your admiration, sir. You insulted my wife in the gazebo yesterday evening?
You are mistaken. I made love to your wife in the gazebo. She told me to meet her there. I have her note here somewhere. I dare say I could find it for you. If someone is putting it about that I did not turn up, by God, sir, it is a slander.
You damned lecher! You would drag down a lady's reputation to make a refuge for your cowardice. It will not do. I am calling you out.
Chater, 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 my dear friend.
You dared to call me that. I demand satisfaction.
Mrs. Chater demanded satisfaction, and now you are demanding satisfaction. I cannot spend my time day and night satisfying the demands of the Chater family. As for your wife's reputation, it stands where it ever stood.
You blighted.
I assure you, Mrs. Chater is charming and spirited, with a pleasing voice and dainty step. She is the epitome of all qualities society applauds in her sex. And yet her chief renown is for a readiness that keeps her in a state of tropical humidity, as would grow orchids in her drawers in January.
Hand hot! I will not listen to this. Will you fight or not?
Not. There are no more than 2 or 3 poets of the first rank now living, and I will not shoot one of them dead over a perpendicular poke in a gazebo with a woman whose reputation could not adequately be defended by a platoon of musketry deployed by Rhoda.
Ha! You say so. Who are the others, in your opinion? No, this goes very ill, Hodge. I will not be flattered out of my course. You say so, do you?
I do. I would say the same to Milton, were he not already dead. Well, not the part about his wife, of
But
course.
among the living, Mr. Southey?
Southey, I would have shot on sight.
Yes. He has fallen off. Oh, I admire Bella, what? But manner. Oh, dear me. Oh. But we are straying from the business here. You took advantage of Mrs. Chater. And if that were not bad enough, it appears that every stable boy and scout...
Damn me, Chater, have you not listened to a word I've said?
I have heard you, sir, and I will not deny I welcome your regard. God knows one is little appreciated if one stands outside the coterie of hacks and placemen who surround Geoffrey in the Edinburgh.
Mr. Chater, they judge a poet by the seating plan at Lord Holland's table.
By heaven, you are right. And I would very much like to know the name of the scoundrel who slandered my first drama, The Maid of Turkey, in the Piccadilly Recreation.
The Maid of Turkey? I keep it by my bedside. When I cannot sleep, I take up The Maid of Turkey like an old friend.
There you are. And the scoundrel wrote that he would not give it to his dog for dinner were it covered in bread sauce and stuffed with chestnuts. When Mrs. Chater read that, sir, she wept and would not give herself to me for a fortnight. Which recalls me to my purpose.
Ah, the new poem, however, will make your name perpetual.
Whether it do or not.
It is not a question, sir. No coterie can oppose the acclamation of the reading public. The couch of arrows will take the town.
Is that your estimation?
It is my intent.
It is it? Well, I do not understand you.
You see, I have an early copy sent to me for review. I say review, but I speak of an extensive appreciation of your gifts and your rightful place in English literature.
Well, I must say, this is certainly You have written it?
Not yet.
And how long does...
Well, to be done right, there must first be a rereading of your book. Both your books. Several readings. Together with outlying works for a collection of deference or disdain as the case merits. I take notes, of course, I order my thoughts, and finally, when all is well and I am calm in my mind...
Did Mrs. Chater know of this before before you...
I very likely think she did.
There is nothing that woman would not do for me. Now you have an insight into her character, sir. Yes. By God, she is a wife to me, sir.
For that reason alone, I would not make her a widow.
Captain Bryce once made the same observation.
Captain Bryce?
Mr. Hodge, allow me to inscribe your copy in happy anticipation. Lady Thomasina's pen will serve us.
Your connection to Lord and Lady Croom you owe to fighting her ladyship's brother?
No, it was all nonsense, sir. A canard. But a fortunate mistake, sir. It brought me the patronage of a captain of His Majesty's Navy and the brother of a countess. I do not think Mr. Walter Scott can say as much. And here I am, a respected guest at Sidley Park.
Well, sir, you can say you have received satisfaction. Mr. Noakes, my muddy-mettled rascal, where's your spyglass?
I beg your leave. I thought her ladyship... Excuse me.
To my friend Septimus Hodge, who stood up and gave his best on behalf of the author Ezra Chater at Sidley Park, Derbyshire, April 10th, 1809. There, sir. Something to show your grandchildren.
This is more than I deserve. This is handsome. What do you say, Noakes?
Oh, no, not the gazebo. Mr. Noakes, what is this I hear?
Not only the gazebo, but the boathouse, the Chinese bridge, the shrubbery.
Oh, God, sir, not possible.
Mr. Noakes will have it so.
Mr. Noakes, this is monstrous.
I'm glad to hear it from you, Mr. Hodge.
May I return now?
Not just yet.
Yes, let her stay. A lesson in folly is worth two in wisdom.
If Sidney Park to be an Englishman's garden or the haunt of course it can bring it.
Let us not hyperbolize, sir.
It is rape, sir.
It is the modern style.
Regrettable, but so it is.
Mr. Chater, you show too much submission. Mr. Hodge, I appeal to you.
Madam, I regret the gazebo. I sincerely regret the gazebo and the boathouse up to a point. But the Chinese bridge, fantasy. And, the shrubbery I reject with contempt. Mr. Chater, would you take the word of a jumped-up jobbing gardener who sees carnal embrace in every nook and cranny of the landscape?
They are not speaking of carnal embrace, Septimus. Are you, Mama?
Certainly not. What do you know of carnal embrace?
Everything, thanks to Septimus. In my opinion, Mr. Noakes' scheme for the garden is perfect. It is a Salvatore.
What does she mean?
Salvatore Rosa, your ladyship, the painter. He is indeed the very exemplar of the picturesque style.
Hodge, what is this?
She speaks from innocence, not experience.
You call this innocence? Has he ruined you, child?
Answer your uncle.
How is a ruined child different from a ruined castle?
On such questions, I defer to Mr. Noakes.
A ruined castle is picturesque, certainly.
That is the main difference. I teach the classical authors. If I do not elucidate their meaning, who will?
As her tutor, you have a duty to keep her in ignorance.
Do not dabble in paradox, Edward. It puts you in danger of fortuitous wit. Thomasina, wait in your bedroom.
Yes, Mama. I did not intend to get you into trouble, Septimus, and I'm sorry for it. It is plain to see that there are things a girl is allowed to understand, and these things include the whole of algebra. There are others, such as embracing a side of beef, which must be kept from her until she's old enough to have a carcass of her own.
One moment.
What is she talking about?
Meat.
Meat?
Thomasina, you had better remain. Your knowledge of the picturesque obviously exceeds anything the rest of us can offer. Mr. Hodge, ignorance should be like an empty vessel waiting to be filled at the well of truth, not a cabinet of vulgar curios. Mr. Noakes, now at last it is your turn.
Thank you, my lady.
Your drawing is a very wonderful transformation. I would not have recognized my own garden but for your ingenious book, is it not? Look, here is the garden as it appears to us now, and here as it might be when Mr. Noakes has done with it, where there is the familiar pastoral refinement of an Englishman's garden. Here is an eruption of gloomy forest and towering crag, of ruins where there was never a house, of water beating against rock where there was neither spring nor stone I could not throw the length of a cricket pitch. My hyacinth dell has become a haunt for hobgoblins. My Chinese bridge, which I am assured is superior to the one at Kew and for all I know at Peking, is usurped by a fallen obelisk overgrown with briars.
Lord Little has one very similar.
I cannot relieve Lord Little's misfortunes by adding to my own. Pray, what is this rustic hovel that presumes to superpose my gazebo?
That is the Hermitage, madam.
The Hermitage. I am bewildered.
It is all irregular, Mr. Noakes.
It is, sir. Irregularity is one of the chiefest principles of the picturesque style.
But Sidley Park is already a picture, and a most amiable picture, too. Well, the slopes are green and gentle. The trees are companionably grouped at intervals that show them to advantage. The reel is a serpentine ribbon unwound from the lake, peaceably contained by meadows in which the right amount of sheep are tastefully arranged. In short, it is nature as God intended. And I can say with the painter, et in Arcadia ego, here I am in Arcadia, Thomasina.
Yes, Mama, if you would have it so.
Is she correcting my taste or my translation?
Neither beyond correction, Mama, but it was your geography that caused the doubt.
Something has occurred with the girl since I saw her last, and surely that was yesterday. How old are you this morning?
13 years and 10 months, Mama.
13 years and 10 months. She is not due to be pert for 6 months at the earliest, nor to have notions of taste for much longer. Mr. Hodge, I hold you accountable. Mr. Noakes, back to you.
Thank you,
You have
madam.
been reading too many novels by Mrs. Radcliffe. That is my opinion. This is a garden for the Castle of Otranto or the Mysteries of
The
Udolpho.
Castle of Otranto, my lady, was written by Horace Walpole.
Other brochure on the subject, and we will see by and by. Your friend has got down a pigeon, Mr. Hodge. Bravo, sir!
The pigeon, my lady, I am sure fell to your son or your husband. My school friend was never a sportsman.
Ah, well, yes to Augustus. Bravo, lad!
Come along. Where are my troops?
My dear Mr. Hodge.
Huff, huff, huff. I've grown up to the sound of guns like a child of a siege. Pigeons and rooks on the close season, grouse from the heights of August, and the pheasants to follow. Partridge, snipe, woodcock, and teal. And then the calling of the herd. Papa has no need of the recording angel. His life is written in the game books.
A calendar of slaughter. Even in Arcadia, there am I.
Oh, phooey to death. I would put in a hermit. For what is a hermitage without one? Are you in love with my mother, Septimus?
You must not be cleverer than your elders. It is not polite.
Am I cleverer?
Yes, much.
Well, I'm sorry for it. Mrs. Chater came to the music room with a note for you. She said it was of scant importance and that I should deliver it to you with the utmost safety, urgency, and discretion. Does carnal embrace addle the brain?
Invariably. That is enough teaching for today.
There. I've made him like the Baptist in the wilderness.
How picturesque.
Thomasina!
Oh, well, she was here.
Ah, the French window.
Yes, hang on.
Sigh.
The best thing is you wait here. Save you tramping around. She spends a good deal of time in the garden, as you may imagine.
Yes. Why?
Well, she's writing a history of the garden, didn't you know?
No, I knew she was working on the Croom paper.
Well, it's not exactly a history of the garden either. I'll let Hannah explain it. The trench you nearly drove into has all to do with it. I was going to say make yourself comfortable, but that's hardly possible. Everything's been cleared out. It's en route to the nearest lavatory.
Everything is?
No, this room is. They drew the line at chemical ladies.
Yes, I see. Did you say Hannah?
Hannah, yes. Oh, will you be all right? I won't be... Mr. Nightingale?
Oh, yes, thank you. Miss Jarvis is Hannah Jarvis, the author?
Oh, yes. Have you read her book?
Oh, yes, yes.
I bet she's in the Hermitage. I can't see from here with the marquee.
Are you having a garden party?
A dance for the district. Our annual dressing up and general drunkenness. The Wrinkleys won't have it in the house. There was a teapot we once had to bag back from Christie's in the nick of time, so anything that can be destroyed, stolen, or vomited on has been tactfully removed. Tactlessly, I should say.
Look, would you tell her... Would you mind not mentioning my name just yet?
Oh, all right.
More fun to surprise her. Would you mind?
No, but she's bound to ask. Should I give you another name, just for the moment?
Oh, yes, why not?
Perhaps another bird. You're not really a nightingale.
Sob, 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 sob. Whoa! Whoa!
She's in the garden looking for Miss Jarvis.
Where is everything?
It's been removed for the...
The dance is all in the tent, isn't it?
Yes, but this is the nearest way to the toilet.
I need the commode.
Can't you use the toilet?
It's got all the game books in it.
The toilet has or the commode has?
Is anyone looking after you?
Oh, yes, thank you. I'm Bernard, and I've come to see Miss Jarvis. I wrote a letter to Lord Croom, but unfortunately I never received a reply.
Did you type it?
Type it?
Was your letter typewritten?
Oh, yes.
My father never replies to typewritten letters. Where have you been hiding at, Lightning?
So I telephoned yesterday, and I think I spoke with you.
With me? Yes, you're doing a talk about someone, and you wanted to speak to Hannah about something.
Yes, as it turns out. I'm hoping Miss Jarvis will look kindly on me.
I doubt it.
You know about research.
I know Hannah.
Has she been here long?
Well in possession, I'm afraid. My mother's read her book, you see. Have you?
Yes, a book, indeed.
She's terribly pleased with herself.
Yeah, well, I dare say if I wrote a bestseller.
No, for reading it. My mother basically reads garden books.
Well, she must be delighted to have Hannah Jarvis writing a book about her garden.
Actually, it's about hermits. It's okay, Gus. Well, I guess I'll take Lightning for his run.
Actually, we've met before at Sussex a couple of years ago, a seminar.
Oh, was I there?
Yes, one of my colleagues believed he had found an unattributed short story by D.H. Lawrence, and he analyzed it on his home computer. Most interesting. Perhaps you remember the paper.
Not really. But I often sit with my eyes closed, and it doesn't necessarily mean I'm awake.
Well, by comparing sentence structures and so forth, this chap showed that there was a 90% chance that the story had been written by the same person as Women in Love. And to my inexpressible joy, one of your maths mob showed that on the same statistical basis, there was a 90% chance that Lawrence had also written the Just William books and much of the previous days Brighton and Hove Argus.
Brighton? Yes, I was there. Oh, here she comes now. I'll leave you two to talk. By the way, is yours the red Mazda?
Yes.
If you want a tip, I'd put it out of sight through the stable arch before my father gets home. You won't have anyone in the house with a Japanese car. Are you queer?
No, actually.
Well, even so.
Mr. Peacock?
Oh, yes, Miss Jarvis, of course. Such a pleasure. Sorry to have brought you indoors, but Lady Chloe kindly insisted.
No matter. You would have muddied your shoes.
How thoughtful. And how kind of you to spare me a little of your time.
Are you a journalist?
No.
I've been in the ha-ha. Very squelchy.
Ha-ha.
What?
Oh, a theory of mine. Ha-ha, not ha-ha. If you were strolling along the garden and all of a sudden the ground gave way at your feet, you're not going to go ha-ha. You're going to jump back and go ha-ha. Or more probably bloody hell. Yeah. Personally, I think old Murray was up the pole on that one. In France, you know, ha-ha is used to denote a strikingly ugly woman. Much more likely bet for something that will keep the cows off the lawn.
Mr. Peacock, what can I do for you?
Oh, well, to begin with, you can call me Bernard, which is my name.
Thank you.
The book, oh, your book was a revelation. To see Caroline Lamb through your eyes is really like seeing her for the first time. I'm ashamed to say I never read her fiction, and how right you are. It's extraordinary stuff. Early 19th is as much my period as anything is.
You teach?
Oh, yes, and write. As do you, as do we all, though I've never done anything which is sold like Caro.
I don't teach.
No, well, all the more credit to you. To rehabilitate a forgotten writer. Well, I suppose you could say that's the main reason for an English dom.
Not to teach.
Oh, good God, no. Let the brats figure it out on their own. Anyhow, many congratulations. I expect someone will be bringing out Caroline Lamb's oeuvre now.
Yes, I expect so.
How wonderful. Bravo. Simply as a document shedding reflected light on the character of Lord Byron, it's bound to
Bernard! You did say Bernard, didn't you?
I did.
I'm putting my shoes on again.
You're not going to go out.
No. I'm going to kick you in the balls.
Right. Point taken. Ezra Chater.
Ezra Chater.
Born Twickenham, Middlesex, 1768, author of 2 verse narratives, The Maid of Turkey, 1808, and The Couch of Eros, 1809. Nothing heard after that. It disappears from view.
I see. And?
There is a Sidley Park connection. To my friend Septimus Hodge, who stood up and gave his best on behalf of the author, Ezra Chater at Sidley Park, Derbyshire, April 10th, 1809. I am in your hands.
The Couch of Eros. Is it any good?
Yeah, quite surprising.
You think there's a book in here?
No. A monograph, perhaps, in the Journal of English Studies. There's almost nothing on Chater. Not a word in the D&B, of course. By that time, he'd been completely forgotten.
Family?
Oh, zilch. There's only one other Chater in the British National Library database.
Same period.
Yes, but he wasn't a poet like our Ezra. He was a botanist who described the dwarf dahlia in Martinique and died there after being bitten by a monkey.
And Ezra Chater?
There are 2 references in the periodical index, one for each book. In each case, a substantial review in the Piccadilly Recreation, a thrice-weekly folio sheet, but giving no personal details.
And where was this?
Private collection. I have a talk to give in London next week, and I find Chater interesting, so anything on him or this Septimus Hodge, Sidley Park, any leads at all, I would be most grateful.
Well, this is a new experience for me. A groveling academic.
Oh, I say.
Oh, but it is. All the academics who reviewed my book patronized it.
Surely not.
Surely, yes. The Byron gang unzipped their flies and patronized all over it. Where is it you don't bother to teach, by the way?
Sussex, actually.
Sussex. Nightingale. Yes, 1,000 words in the Observer to see me off the premises with a pat on the bottom. You must know him.
As I say, I'm in your hands.
Quite. Say please, then.
Oh, please.
Sit down. Do.
Thank you.
How did you know I was here?
I didn't. I telephoned yesterday and spoke to the son, but he didn't mention you by name, and then he forgot to mention mine.
Valentine. He's at Oxford, technically.
Yes, we met. Bride's head regurgitated.
My fiancé.
I'll take a chance. You're lying.
Well done, Werner.
Christ.
He calls me his fiancé.
Why?
It's a joke.
You turned him down?
Don't be silly. Do I look like the next Countess of
A freebie, the joke that consoles. My tortoise Lightning, my fiancée Hannah.
Ah, yes. You have a way with you, Bernard. I'm not sure I like it.
What's he doing, Valentine?
He's a postgrad, biology.
No, he's a mathematician.
Well, he's doing grouse.
Grouse?
Not actual grouse, computer grouse.
Who's the one that doesn't speak?
Gus.
What's the matter with him?
I didn't ask.
Well, and the father sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes.
And the mother's the gardener. What's going on here?
What do you mean?
I nearly took her head off. She was standing in a trench at the time.
Archaeology. The house had a formal Italian garden until about 1740. Lady Croom is interested in garden history. I sent sent her my book. It contains, as you know if you've read it, which I'm not assuming, by the way, a rather good description of Caroline's garden at Brockett Hall. I'm here now helping Hermione.
Hermione?
The records are unusually complete and they have never been worked on.
I'm beginning to admire you.
Before was BS.
Completely. The photograph does you justice. I'm not sure the book does.
Septimus Hodge was the tutor.
Atta girl.
His pupil was the Croom daughter. There was a son at Eton. Septimus lived in the house. The paybook specifies allowances for wine and candles, so not quite a guest, but rather more than a steward. His recommendation is preserved among the papers. I'll dig it out for you. As far as I remember, he studied mathematics and natural philosophy at Cambridge. A scientist, therefore, as much as anything.
I'm impressed. Thank you. And, Chayton?
Nothing.
Oh? Nothing at all?
I'm afraid not.
How about the library?
The catalog was done in the 1880s. I've been through the lot.
Books or catalog?
Catalog.
Oh, pity.
I'm sorry.
No mention in the letters?
I'm afraid not. I've been very thorough in your period because, of course, it's my period too.
Is it? Actually, I'm not quite sure what it is you're doing here.
The Sidley Hermit.
Ah, of course.
He is my peg for the nervous breakdown of the romantic imagination. I'm doing landscape and literature 1750 to 1834.
What happened in 1834?
My hermit died.
Oh, of course.
What do you mean, of course?
Oh, nothing.
Yes, you do.
No, no. However, Coleridge also died in 1834.
So he did. What a stroke of luck. Thank you, Bernard. Look, there he is. The only known likeness of the Sidley Hermit.
Nosy painter?
He drew these books as a before and after, you see? This is how it all looked until, say, 1810. Relating, serpentine, open water, clumps of trees, classical boathouse.
The real England.
You can stop being silly now, Bernard. English landscape was invented by gardeners, imitating foreign painters who were evoking classical authors. The whole thing was brought home in the luggage rental. Capability of doing Claude, who was doing Virgil, Arcadia, and here, superimposed by Richard Noakes, untamed nature in the style of Salvator Rosa. It's the Gothic novel expressed in landscape, everything but vampires. There's an account of my hermit in a letter by your illustrious namesake.
Florence?
What?
No, go on.
Thomas Love Peacock.
Oh, yes!
I found it in an essay on hermits and anchorites published in the Cornhill magazine in the 1860s. 1862. Peacock calls him not one of your village simpletons to frighten the ladies, but a savant among idiots, a sage of lunacy.
An oxymoron, so to speak.
Yes. What?
Nothing.
Here we are. A letter we have seen, written by the author of Headlong Hall nearly 30 years ago, tells of a visit to the Earl of Croom's estate, Sidley Park.
A letter to Thackeray?
I don't know. Does it matter?
No, sorry. Only Thackeray edited the Cornhill until 1863, when, as you know, he died. His father had been with the East India Company, where Peacock, of course, had held the position of examiner, so it's quite possible that if the essay were by Thackeray, then the letter by... go on. Oh, the East India Peacock, that's so easy to... Sorry, can I look? Oh, yes, it's been topped and tailed, of course, so it might be worth... go on, I'm listening. Oh, yes, it's Thackeray, all right. Unbearable. What were you saying?
Are you always like this?
Like what?
The point is, the Crooms, of course, had the hermit under their noses for 20 years, so hardly thought him worth remarking, finding out. The Peacock letter is still the main source, unfortunately. Well, it was one of those moments. The hermit of Sidley Park was my in the landscape. He was very busy. He died solid with me. Peacock says he was suspected of genius. It turned out, of course, he was off his head. He'd covered every sheet with Kabbalistic proofs that the world was going to an end. It's perfect, isn't it? A perfect symbol, I mean.
Oh, yes. Of what?
Oh, man, a sham burner. It's what happened to the Enlightenment, isn't it? A century of intellectual rigor turned into a mind chaos suspected of genius in a setting of cheap thrills and false emotions. The history of the art says it all beautifully. There's an engraving of Sidley Park in 1730 that makes you want to be paradise in the age of reason. By 1760, everything had gone. The topiary, the pools and terraces, fountains, an avenue of lines. The whole sublime geometry was plowed under by capability brown. The grass went from the doorstep to the horizon, and the best box hedge in Derbyshire was dug up for the pool to pretend they were living in God's countryside. And then Richard Noakes, and he finished, it looked like this. To feel it, you see?
Well, that's awfully good. No, that's stand up.
Thank you.
Personally, I like art. Do you hate it?
I don't like sentimentality.
Yes, I see. Are you sure? You seem quite sentimental over geometry. But that's all the genius of the place.
That's my title.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. Who was he when he wasn't being a symbol?
I don't know.
Ah.
I mean, yet.
Absolutely, yeah. What did they do with the paper? Does Peacock say?
Made a bonfire.
Ah, well.
I still have some of Lady Croom's garden books to go through.
Account books or journals?
A bit of both. They're gappy, but they span the period.
Really? Have you come across Byron at all? As a matter of interest.
First edition of Childe Harold in the library, and English bards, I think.
Inscribed?
No.
And he doesn't pop up in the letters at all?
Why should he? The Crooms don't pop up in his.
Well, that's true, of course. But Newstead isn't so far away. Would you mind terribly if I poked around a bit? Only in the papers you're done with, of course.
Are you looking into Byron or Chater?
Sorry, just cutting through. There's tea in the pantry if you don't mind much.
How kind.
Hannah will show you.
Here, let me help you.
Oh no, that's all right. Thank you. I've been saving Val's game books. Thanks.
Sweet girl. Oh, really?
Oh, really what?
I meant to say, don't worry if Father makes remarks about your car, Mr. Nightingale. He's got a thing about... Oh, how was the surprise? Not yet, eh? Oh, well, sorry. Tea, anyway. So sorry if I...
You absolute bastard!
The thing is that there is a Byron connection, too.
I don't care.
Well, you should. The Byron gang are going to get caught in their zippers.
Oh, really?
If we collaborate.
On what?
Sit down and I'll tell you.
I'll stand for the moment.
This copy of The Couch of Eros belonged to Byron.
It belonged to Septimus Hodge.
Originally, yes. But it was in Byron's library, which was sold to pay his debts before he left England for good in 1816. The sales catalogue is in the British Library. Eros was lot 74A, which was bought by the bookseller and publisher John Nightingale of Opera Court, Pall Mall. whose name survives in the firm Nightingale and Matlock, the current Nightingale being my cousin. I'll just give you the headlines. 1939, stock removed to Nightingale Country House in Kent. 1945, stock returned to bookstore. Meanwhile, overlooked box of early 19th century books languishes in Country House cellar until house sold to make room for the Channel Tunnel rail link. Eros is discovered with the original sales slip attached. Photocopy available for inspection.
All right, it was in Byron's library.
A number of the passages have been underlined. All of the passages, and only... No, look at me, don't look at the book. All the underlined passages, word for word, were used as quotations in the review of the Couch of Eros in the Piccadilly Recreation of April 30th, 1809. The reviewer begins by drawing attention to his prior notice in the same periodical of the Maid of Turkey.
The reviewer is obviously Hodge. My friend Septimus Hodge, who stood up and gave his best on behalf of the author.
No, that's my point. The Piccadilly ridiculed both books.
Do the reviews read like Byron?
They look a damn sight more like Byron than Byron's review of Wordsworth the previous year.
I see. Well, congratulations, possibly. 2 previously unknown book reviews by the young Byron. Is that it?
No, because of the tapes, 3 documents survived undisturbed in the book. Sir, we have a matter to settle. I wait on you in the gun room, signed E. Chater, Esquire. My husband has sent to town for pistols, denied what cannot be proven for charity's sake. I keep my room this day, unsigned. And Sidley Park, April 11th, 1809. Sir, I call you a liar, a lecher, a slanderer in the press, and a thief of my honor. I wait upon your arrangements for giving me satisfaction as a man and a poet. Signed E. Chater, Esquire.
Superb, but inconclusive. The book had 7 years to find its way into Byron's possession. It doesn't connect Byron with Chater, or with Sidley Park, or with Hodge for that matter. Furthermore, there's not a hint in Byron's letters, and this kind of scrape is the last thing he would have kept quiet about.
Scrape?
He would have made a comic turn out of it.
Comic turn? He killed Chater.
Oh, really?
Chater was 41 years old. He, the author of 2 books. Nothing is heard of him. He disappears from view entirely. And Byron had just published his satire, English Bards and Scotch Reviews. He's just getting a name. Yet he sailed for Lisbon as soon as he could find a ship and stayed there for 2 years. Hannah, this is fame. Somewhere in the Croom papers, there will be something.
There isn't. I've looked.
But you were looking for something else. Exactly like Byron remarked wittily.
Nevertheless, his presence would be unlikely to have gone on. But there is nothing to suggest that Byron was here, and I don't believe it.
All right, but let me have a look.
You'll queer my pitch.
Dear girl, I know how to handle
And don't call me dear girl. If I find anything on Byron or Chater or Hodge, I'll pass it on. Nightingale, Sussex.
Thank you. I'm sorry about the business with my name.
Don't mention it.
How old was Hodge, by the way?
I'd have to look it up, but a year or 2 older than Byron.
What was his college?
Trinity.
Contemporaries at Trinity?
Yes, Bernard. And no doubt they were both in the cricket 11 when Harrow played Eton at Lord's.
Do you mean to say that Septimus Hodge was at school with Byron?
Yes, he must have been. As a matter of fact.
Well, you silly cow!
Oh, I thought I'd bring
Going to hide it?
Hide it! I'm going to sell it. Is there a pub I can put up at in the village? Aren't you glad I'm here?
He said he knew you.
He couldn't have.
No, perhaps not. He said he wanted to be a surprise, but I suppose that's different. Thought there was a lot of sexual energy there, didn't you?
What?
Bouncy on his feet, you see? A sure sign. Should I invite him for you?
To what? No.
No, you can invite him. That's better. He can come as your partner.
Oh, stop it. Thank you for the tea.
Well, if you don't want him, I'll have him. Is he married?
I haven't the slightest idea. Aren't you supposed to have a pony?
I'm just trying to set you up, Hannah.
Believe me, it gets less important.
I mean for the dancing. He can come as Beau Brummel.
I don't want to dress up, and I don't want a dancing partner. Least of all, Mr. Nightingale. I don't dance.
Don't be such a prude. You were kissing him anyway.
He was kissing me, and only out of general enthusiasm.
Well, don't say I didn't give you first chance. My genius brother will be much relieved. He's in love with you, I suppose you know.
That's a joke.
It's not a joke to him.
Of course it is, not even a joke. How can you be so ridiculous?
Oh, hello, Gus. What have you got?
Oh, thank you.
Told you.
Oh, thank you. Oh dear.
Why have you stopped?
Solio in esse in igne. Seated on a throne in the fire, sedevat Regina.
There is no reply, Jellyby, thank you.
I will say so,
Wind
sir.
smelling sweetly, porphyrius Baileys.
I will have something for the post, if you would be so kind.
Yes, sir.
Purple sails was like as to something by with or from lovers, Septimus, musica to bottom in Herabat, music of pipes commanded.
Ruled is better.
The silver oars exciting the ocean as if amorous.
That is very good.
Regina reclinabat. The queen was reclining. Fate descriptio. In a golden tent like Venus and yet more.
Try putting some poetry in.
How can I if there's none in the Latin?
Oh, a critic.
Is it Queen Dido?
No.
Who is the poet?
Known to you.
Known to me?
Not a Roman.
Mr. Chater.
Your translation is very much like Jake.
I know, it is your friend Byron.
Lord Byron, if you please.
Mama's in love with Lord Byron.
Yes, nonsense.
It's not nonsense. I saw them together yesterday in the gazebo. Lord Byron was reading to her from his satire, and Mama was laughing with her head in her best position.
She did not understand the satire and was showing politeness to a guest.
She was vexed with Papa for his determination to alter the park. That alone cannot account for her politeness towards a guest. She came down hours before her custom. Lord Byron was amusing at breakfast. He paid you a tribute, Septimus.
Did he?
He said you were the most witty fellow, and he had by heart almost an article you wrote. I don't remember what about, but it concerned a book called The Maid of Turkey and how you would not feed it to your dog for dinner.
Ah, Mr. Chater was at breakfast this morning.
Yes, not unlike a certain lazy bones.
Well, he did not have Latin to set and mathematics to correct.
Correct? What was incorrect about it? Alpha minus? What was the minus for?
For for doing more than was asked.
You did not like my discovery?
A fancy is not a discovery.
A jibe is not a rebuttal. You are showing me because Mama is paying attention to your friend. Let them alone. They cannot turn back the advancement of knowledge. I think it is an excellent discovery. Each week, I plot your equations dot for dot, x's against y's, and all manner of algebraic relation, and each week they show themselves as commonplace geometry, as if the world were nothing more than arcs and angles. God's truth, Septimus. If there's an equation for a curve like a bell, then why not a curve like a bluebell? And if a bluebell, then why not a rose? Do we believe nature's written in numbers?
We do.
Then why do your equations only produce a factor?
He has equations that lead to infinities where we cannot follow.
And thus God could only make a cabinet.
Back to Cleopatra.
Is it Cleopatra? I hate Cleopatra.
Hate her? Why?
Everything has turned to love with her. New love, lost love, absent love. I've never known a heroine that makes such a noodle of our sex. It only takes a Roman general to drop anchor outside the window, and away goes the empire like a christening bug into a pawn shop. If Queen Elizabeth had been a Ptolemy, history would have been quite different. We'd be admiring the Great Sphinx of Verona and the Great Pyramids of Rome. But instead, the Egyptian noodle made carnal embrace with the enemy, who burned the Great Library of Alexandria without so much as a fine for all that is overdue. Septimus, can you bear it? The lost plays of the Athenians, 200 at least, by Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides. Aristotle's own library brought to Egypt by the noodle's own ancestors. How can we sleep for grief?
By counting our stock. 7 plays from Aeschylus, 7 from Sophocles, 19 from Euripides, my lady. You should no more grieve the others than a buckle lost from your first shoe, or for your lesson book, which will be lost when you are old. We shed as we pick up, like travelers who must carry everything in their arms, and what we let fall will be picked up by those behind. The procession is very long, and life is very short. We die on the march, but there is nothing outside the march, so nothing will be lost to it. The missing plays of Sophocles will turn up piece by piece or be written again in another language. Ancient cures for diseases will reveal themselves again. Mathematical discoveries, glimpsed and lost to view, will have their time again. You do not suppose, my lady, that if all of Archimedes were hiding in the great library of Alexandria, that we would be at loss for a corkscrew? I have no doubt that the improved steam-driven heat engine that puts Mr. Noakes in an ecstasy that he and it and the modern age should all coincide were described on papyrus. Steam and brass were not invented on Glasgow. Now, where were we? I should try a free translation for you. At Harrow, I was better at this than Lord Byron. Yes. The barge she sat in, like a burnished throne, burned on the water. The poop was beaten golden. Purple the sails and...
Cheat!
Oh, yes. So perfumed that the winds were lovesick with them. The oars were silver, which to the tune of flutes struck, and made the water, which they beat to follow faster, as amorous of their strokes.
Cheat!
For her own
Cheat!
passion, it beggared all description. She did lie...
I hope you die!
Good God, man, what have you told her?
Told her what?
Marsh,